I heard you thought navigating the Grand Line would be easy. Uh, Watch this video before you get any crazy ideas. Hello, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of In Between the Lines of Anime. I am your host, Lookiie, and I've had a few people talk to me about why navigating the Grand Line isn't as hard as they make it out to be in the show. And more importantly, what's really bothered me and kind of pushed me to make this video is that a lot of people think you can kind of cheat your way into the Grand Line, to the end of the Grand Line, kind of cheat your way to find the One Piece. So this video is going to be all about why Grand Line navigation is actually so hard. So I'm going to try to refrain from spoilers late in the show, but if you haven't made it to Marineford, I think you best get there so you have a better idea of how the Grand Line is set up. So the first thing we're going to be talking about today is the world map and how it's set up. So I'm going to pull up the picture right here, and it's going to be our world map for the One Piece world. It is divided into 4 seas: our East Blue, West Blue, South Blue, and North Blue. Cutting right down the middle is this giant mass of land known as the Red Line. On top of that lies Marijois, the holy land of our world nobles and celestial dragons. And then cutting perpendicular to the Red Line is the Grand Line alongside 2 calm belts. If we look closer at the Red Line, you're actually going to see this giant X-style river thing going, and that is Reverse Mountain. Reverse Mountain is the only way to actually get into the Grand Line safely. There are other ways of getting into the Grand Line, but it's usually not accessible to most people. Pretty much only world nobles and marines are the only ones that are able to move in and out of the Grand Line kind of at will. All of our 4 seas come together at Reverse Mountain. Reverse Mountain is an upwards mountain from the seas, which is weird on its own, and then a downwards where it spits you out right at the beginning of the Grand Line. The Grand Line is known as the place to be for pirates. If you want your shot at becoming a notorious pirate, pirate king, even a warlord of the sea, anything you want that has to do with wealth, fame, or power, you're going to want to get to the Grand Line because that's where all of the other star players are, and all of our riches lie there. The secrets of the world are riddled throughout the Grand Line. Being such a big, vast part of our world, there's going to be a lot of people. Where there's a lot of people, you need some type of law and order. That's why our Marine Force has bases riddled throughout the Grand Line and naval units all throughout. Anywhere you go, there's going to be Navy or Marines somehow. And if you're a pirate, that means you're constantly being hunted down with how much ever bounty on your head. There is either going to be bounty hunters, Marines, or other pirates coming after you. So why don't you just cut through the middle and just kind of hop in? Well, that is a common mistake for people who don't fully know how this world is set up to assume. You can kind of just get right through. But if we zoom in on our Grand Line, you're going to see 2 belts above the Grand Line known as the Calm Belt. And the reason why it is the calm belt is because it's actually completely calm waters. It is very, very, very calm waters. There is no wind in your sails. There is no waves underneath your boat. Pretty much there's no way to move throughout the calm belt without some sort of external power. But on top of that, the thing that makes it the most dangerous and the biggest deterrent is that is the breeding ground for our monsters of the sea beasts. That is where all of them lie, breed, and exist. There are some caveats to this. There is something called sea stone, and sea stone can be coated onto the bottom of a ship, which is what the Marines do, and that allows them to go in and out of the calm belt with relative ease. So if you're able to not only make it to the Grand Line, which is a feat of its own, but you're also able to make it up Reverse Mountain, down through Twin Capes, and now you're on the Grand Line being hunted by Marines, pirates, and bounty hunters, and you're still alive. Well, pat yourself on the back. That is You're a 1 in a million. A lot of pirates really try this and fail. So now you've made it. You are in the Grand Line. Which way do we go? Well, that's where a special piece of technology comes in called the log pose. I'll talk a little bit more about the log pose later, but it is an essential tool of navigating the Grand Line. So let's assume you have a navigator who knows how to use a log pose and read maps, and you are now able to navigate to the next island. Well, that's going to be a task on its own because the weather in the Grand Line is extremely sporadic. You can have thunderstorms on one island, sunshine on the next, and then a fiery volcano on the one coming up. So it's not easy, and it's not impossible. A lot of the pirates who set out onto the Grand Line end up failing due to their negligence towards the weather and the currents, the seas, and just the monstrous task that it is to navigate in these treacherous conditions. So, with the aid of a lock pose, you can navigate yourselves to the next island with relative ease. What a log pose does is it always points to the next island. And then once you get there, it takes a while, then it starts spinning and goes to the next island where you can then continue your adventure. But a log pose alone will not just help you and get you there super easily. You do need a master navigator to help you along your way. With hundreds of islands and tons of different paths you can take, you're going to want somebody who is able to perfectly coordinate everything to go as smoothly as possible. So, on our world map, we have the Grand Line and then this random block of land going right through the middle. That is the Red Line, where on top of it lies Marijois, home of our world nobles. The Red Line, alongside the Grand Line, is what divides our world into its 4 seas: East, West, North, and South Blue. All of them culminating together at Reverse Mountain, where one path from each sea takes you to the peak of the mountain, and then it takes you straight down to Twin Capes, where you can continue your journey. So, now that we kind of understand how the world is set up, we can take a deeper look at what the Grand Line is. The Grand Line is a stretch of treacherous oceans that actually is split into 2 sections. We have the Grand Line, and then we have the New World, where in order to get to the New World, you must pass underneath the Red Line. There are multiple paths one can take to get from Twin Capes to Sabaody Archipelago, where from that point forward, you have a marine base, Fishman Island, and then you can continue into the New World. So we can assume that no 2 pirate crews are going to have the exact same adventure, even with the aid of a log pose, as it'll just point you to the next closest island. So I'm not going to go any further into the story anymore from here. I'm going to kind of stop here right at Marineford, and then if you want to know what happens in the New World, I can make that into another video, but for peace sake, I'm just going to have our idea set here. The reason why the Grand Line is very difficult to navigate and to actually survive in is mainly because of how dangerous the people there are. You have multiple different cultures and peoples and races throughout the entire Grand Line. With that comes very dangerous people. And in a world littered with pirates, you have strong pirates and weak pirates. There are 2 different groups of pirates that we can name. We have the 7 warlords of the sea, which are pirates that are notorious enough to have a very high bounty and have come to an agreement with the world government and the Navy to be hired as their dogs for their bounty to kind of be put on pause so that nobody will go after them. But the caveat is, when the world government or the Marines need their help, any of the warlords, they must serve, or their warlord citizenship will be revoked. And the second group of pirates that we have are the 4 Yonko of the Sea, extremely notorious pirates with extremely high bounties and power to their name as captains of extremely strong crews. What would indicate them to be a Yonko is that they have an extremely high bounty, they are pirates, and that they have their own island that is not under the world government's supervision or law. They are their own island, and if the world government were to come and intrude on that, well, that would be infringing on their freedoms and would cause a war between said Yonko group and the Marines or world government. So, as kind of a lowly pirate who just started their journey in the Grand Line, you have to be able to navigate around all of this treacherous ocean, not come face to face with sea beasts, and also be able to handle yourself against potentially the strongest pirate groups in the entire world, while being chased by the Marines and the world government. So, one of the bigger questions I get asked is, well, didn't Roger get to the last island? Don't people just know where it is? Yes and no. So the thing with the last island is that there's kind of two. You have Laugh-Tale, home of the One Piece, and where our adventure is going to settle. But you have the last island that any map has, and it's also the last island that your log pose will point to. Lodestar. Lodestar is the island at the end of the Grand Line, and it is the last known place that your log pose will point. So, once you reach Lodestar, where do you go from here? Well, we don't really know. It's said that it took Roger an additional 14 years after he had completed his journey to find Laugh-Tale, to the point where he had actually redone his entire journey. He wasn't able to just get to the last island and then poof, you're at Laugh-Tale now. It was an entire mission. And that mission is where we are in the show, where you need 4 road poneglyphs. You remember those weird blue rocks? Skypiea had it. All these random places had it. Alabasta. Well, there's some red ones out there. You need 4 of them. And the reason why I personally think it's 4 and not 3, you'd be able to take 3 of those coordinates and triangulate them to get your X on marks the spot. But the reason why I personally believe that there is a 4th that is required is because we are also going on our Z-axis. So you need at least 3 for triangulation on a 2D plane, and then that 3rd coordinate to kind of tell you your Z-axis up and down. That's my personal belief. I'm not too sure. Let me know what you guys think down in the comments below. Now that we know that it took Roger a very long time to get from Lodestar to Laugh-Tale, you may be asking yourself, why don't I just kind of climb over the red line and just get to Lodestar and then continue from there? Well, there's 2 problems with that. The first one is we're not entirely sure where Laugh-Tale is. We don't know if it's after Lodestar, before Lodestar, in the Grand Line, in the East Blue. We don't know where it is. And the second thing is, the Red Line is home of our world nobles and the celestial dragons, where it is extremely, extremely guarded and not super safe to kind of show up there as a pirate, right? And they're going to want to take you away. You may be thinking, well, I'll just cut through the comm belt. I don't want to make it seem like it's not a big deal, but it is borderline suicide. There is only one man I know of from our show that is able to safely pass in and out of there without the aid of any tools, and that is Dark King Silver's Rayleigh, the second-hand man to King of the Pirates Roger. So if that tells you something, it should. It definitely should tell you something. There's no cheating in this. You can't come in and out of the comm belt, and you can't hop over and back from the red line. Sorry, you kind of have to go about it the right way, and I think that that is perfect. Going from the East Blue to Reverse Mountain to the Grand Line, underneath the Red Line to the New World, and then you can finally get to Lodestar, and you happen to have all 4 road poneglyphs. Well, I hate to break it to you, your journey's probably done here, because you don't have somebody who's capable of reading the ancient language that the road poneglyphs are written in. There is only one known person on the planet that is able to read this ancient language, Nico Robin. But let's just pretend that you happen to have somebody who can read this language. Well, then you would still have to get there. There's no log pose. There is no map. You just have what could be coordinates on a piece of rock or paper, depending on how you got it. And then you would have to get there. which it took Roger, king of the pirates, 12 to 14 years to do that. Not an easy feat. So, to answer all of your questions, the reason why Grand Line navigation is so difficult is because the Grand Line is a very, very treacherous place. The weather is crazy. There are monsters and pirates stronger than you could even imagine. And on top of that, you have a world government and a naval force constantly coming after you. And if you even surpass those two, you then have 7 warlords of the sea and 4 Yonko that are potentially in your way of getting to Laugh-Tale. On top of that, there are hundreds of islands to navigate to and from. So without the use of a log post and map, you'll get lost. And there's no cheating. Cheating is almost a guaranteed death for most people. Trying to climb over the red line will surely get you killed, and swimming through or rowing through, sailing through the calm belt will most likely get you killed. So the only safe method of transport into the Grand Line is through Reverse Mountain. And then from that point forward, you're kind of stuck there. There's no way out of it now. But for our crew, easy task, easy task. You know how it goes. We're going to see this very, very soon. So I hope you guys enjoyed this video. It was a little weird for me to kind of have to make it. I have a lot of ideas going around, and yeah, I really appreciate you guys spending the time to take a listen. And if you have any comments or anything you heard that I made a mistake on or something I should have added, please let me know in the comments below. Don't forget to like and subscribe, as I'll be making more videos like this. Thanks, guys. See you next time.